Belize's water resources are present on our land's surface as well as underground. From supplying our drinking water to the needs of our industries, fresh water is critical for life.
We used to use river to go to our farm to make our plantation. As a girl, I used to go indoors. River, the water is a lifesaver because we couldn't do without it.
They also use the river for water for drinking. Those are all the ways, and also for bathing.
But how much water do we have and how clean is it? In Belize, we have always considered our water to be very abundant, confident that nature will continue to supply it. But with the increase in population, higher agricultural and industry demands, including tourism, we can expect to see changes in freshwater quantity and quality. To make matters more complicated, climate and land use change are already contributing to these changes. Climate refers to the general pattern of weather that we experience throughout the year based on the average of conditions such as temperature and rainfall over a long period of time. Now, let's take a quick look at climate change.
Climate change, it is produced naturally. However, in the past 150 years, we have noticed that this change is being exacerbated by man-produced climate change, that is, emissions of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And this is what we refer to as global warming. So we're seeing more intense weather events, we're seeing temperatures rising, we're seeing sea level rising, and that is affecting the water resources on the mainland of the country.
Recent regional studies have indicated that the countries of Central America are at particular risk from the impacts of climate change, not only on biodiversity, but also on our water resources. What does this mean for Belize? Climatic events, land clearing, and pollution are threatening to decrease the amount and cleanliness of our national freshwater resources. Many noticeable changes are already taking place.
You'll find a lot of changes because the trees are falling off the bankside, also the bankside broken down and full up the river more, so that the river getting a bit shallower, and more and less you find out in changing right now, you find out you not get much fish as first.
Once ago, the flood never was every 7 years, but now, every year it comes top gallon.
In an effort to understand how future climate and land use change would affect water resources in Belize, scientists from the University of Belize Environmental Research Institute and the Water Center for the Humid Tropics of Latin America and the Caribbean carried out a study focusing on Belize's 16 major watersheds, including the portions of these located in Mexico and Guatemala. Watersheds are land areas that gather the water that fills our groundwater reserves and rivers. The study looked at changes in runoff and erosion. Runoff is a draining away of water and everything in it from the watershed. Erosion is the gradual destruction of surface soil. The main aim of the study was to examine changes in runoff and erosion based on climate change, changes in land use, and both of these combined. The study also examined our water supply and changes in the amount of water we need for domestic use. In order to perform the study, rainfall was calculated based on several of the latest global climate models. These models represent a set of present or future climate conditions for the region. Rainfall estimated based on the models was then compared to the historical rainfall in order to calculate the average changes that we can expect across Belize's watersheds. Scenarios or possibilities of changes in land use were also generated. 3 types of scenarios were developed. The business as usual scenario shows the amount of forest Belize will have in the future if we continue clearing them at the same pace as today. Deforestation rate halved shows the amount of forest we will have in the future if we reduce the pace at which we are clearing by half. And deforestation rate doubled shows how much forest we will have in the future if we double the pace at which we are clearing. Rainfall estimates for several representative models as well as land use change scenarios were then used to investigate changes in runoff and erosion in Belize's watersheds.
In terms of the results of the study and the major findings, when it comes to rainfall, one of the major findings was that across all watersheds we can expect that there will be diminished rainfall. This does not take into account the seasonality of that rainfall and how that will impact people and industry. That has some major implications for certain areas of Belize. For example, in the northern part of Belize, where there is heavy agricultural use by the sugarcane industry, it could also mean that there could be displacement of agriculture from our northernmost districts to our southernmost districts because the south is wetter.
Looking at the impacts of land use change without climate change, the results of the study indicate a general increase in both runoff and erosion across all major watersheds. The biggest increases in runoff are observed under the land use change scenario, in which the 2000 to 2010 deforestation rate is doubled. Examining the impacts of climate change only, with no clearing of forests occurring, the general tendency is toward a decrease in both runoff and erosion. Now, considering the combined impacts of climate and land use change, the results show a reduction in runoff for some watersheds and an increase for others. The Northern River watershed is estimated to experience the largest overall increase in runoff, while the City River watershed is estimated to experience the largest overall decrease. The Belize River, the largest and most populated watershed, is overall estimated to experience an increase in runoff. The same is estimated for the Rio Hondo. When it comes to the combined impacts of climate and land use change on erosion, an increase in erosion is estimated across most watersheds, including the Belize River. Going to the results for water demand, in 2010, we only used a small amount of the water or watershed supply for domestic uses. But with the expected increase in the population living in our watersheds and decrease in water supply estimated due to climate and land use change, in 2050, we will need 3 to 8 times more water than what is currently needed for domestic purposes alone. Our watersheds will still be able to provide water for domestic use, but these results do not consider how clean or how available the water will be during different seasons based on the impacts of climate and land use change. Also, we urgently need to gather data on the amount of water currently being used for agricultural and other industry needs, for example, tourism, since that amount of water is much greater than what we use for domestic purposes and will also continue to increase. Based on the study, in the future we can expect less rainfall than at present, especially in the north. Less rainfall will increase the concentration of sediments, including soil and other substances, in our rivers. Increased deforestation will lead to more erosion, causing declining water quality. Increased runoff and erosion increase our vulnerability to flooding, pollution of fresh water with chemicals, and impact on the reef from high sediment loads and pollutants. We can expect large increases in water demand for domestic use and especially agriculture. Because approximately half of the water gathering area for Belize's major rivers is located outside of the country's boundaries, collaboration with neighboring countries is needed to safeguard freshwater quality and supply for Belizeans. The burning of fossil fuels for transportation and industry and the cutting and burning of forests, particularly for agriculture, are the primary activities causing global climate change. Because of Belize's small population, our country's overall impact on reduction of climate change from the burning of fuels is small compared to that of countries with very large populations. So, how can Belize contribute significantly to the prevention or reduction of climate change?
We can do something about the manner in which we use land. We can institute better agricultural practices that can help to diminish runoff, for example, and diminish erosion, increasing the quality of our waters and protecting our water resources. So there's a lot of hope in looking at what we can do as a people in terms of land use options.
To prevent or reduce the impacts of climate and land use change on our water resources, it is extremely important that as a country, we implement the existing policies and legislation on land use, climate change, and water management. We also need updated or new legislation that encourages good management of our forests, forest-based industries such as sustainable logging and sustainable agricultural practices, and discourages clear cutting of large or sensitive areas. our single biggest effort needs to be to stop or reduce deforestation through improved land use practices. The consequences of not taking action is the loss of vital benefits from forests for human health and economic well-being. These include flood control, pure and abundant water, fertile soils, pollinators, game meat, timber, and other products. What can you do? Protect and respect the forest buffer along all rivers and waterways. Recover degraded lands and improve agricultural areas by planting trees. Prevent more deforestation by increasing agricultural production in areas that have already been cleared. Develop value-added agricultural exports instead of selling raw agricultural products to other countries. The research results show that the impacts of climate and land use change on Belize's water resources can definitely be reduced if we commit to taking serious and immediate action. Water is a finite and vulnerable national resource. It is essential to sustain life, the economy, and national development. Each of us has a role to play in taking care of this natural resource. So, let's join our efforts for clean and available water.